And I'll never forget that day because I went home and I put it all away. I took the 2 off-camera flashes that I had, I put it away. My battery pack, everything, I put it in a cabinet and I never touched it again.
I've seen many photographers don't like to share their secrets.
It's not about me. It's 100% service. The simpler I can make things, the better work I can produce. It was mostly men, there were no women. So I didn't have anybody to look up to and say, how do you do this? I am the last person to upgrade. I've always been that way. I started this journey 25 years ago with a used camera from eBay. Once I'm comfortable with something and I know it, I don't want to switch because now I have to learn something new and I'm going to be super frustrated because I get very impatient with that learning process.
So welcome back to another episode of TRG Podcast. Today we have a world-renowned newborn baby photographer, Ana Brandt from California. And she has come to India for a baby academy to teach people like me and few members with me the art of baby photography. She is into this profession for past 25 years and today we are celebrating her journey. So welcome back to India.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good.
How was your journey to India?
Good. It's always good. I sleep on the plane, thank goodness.
So what would you like to tell us about your journey? Like today, it's been 25 years you have been consistently working in this industry.
Yeah.
What all guidance and experience would you like to provide to my viewers and to me especially?
I mean, it's a journey. You know, it's a journey. I mean, when I started 25 years ago, there wasn't social media. It wasn't TikTok or Instagram. It was just me trying to learn photography, really. And I never thought really to stop. I just loved it and I was always on a quest for learning. I feel like I still am. It's never easy. You know, I don't think any journey is easy. But if you love it, you just stay with it. And I think that's the key, especially when the economy is tough or things are challenging. I always tell people, well, what if you couldn't do it? You know, what if tomorrow you could no longer do this photography? So to me, as long as I'm alive and I'm doing well, I'm going to do it as long as I can. And I love it. I love my job. I definitely love it.
Okay. So working with so many celebrities, so many VIP people in your country, what all things have you observed? And what challenges did you face actually?
What have I observed from working with celebrities or VIPs?
How is it different from working with a normal client and working with a vis-a-vis celebrity?
Oh, when you work with a celebrity, it's really less about you, more about them. To me, they do most of the work. It's very easy because when you're working with a celebrity or somebody that is used to being in front of the camera, they know how to pose themselves. They know lighting. I always feel like I'm just clicking the shutters sometimes because they're usually beautiful and well cared for. And I'm just this tiny little observer in their life, just clicking away. And I don't feel like I work that hard, believe it or not. I think I'm more nervous. You get nervous and you have anxiety, but they know what they're doing. So I'm just this little tiny spectator of an ant pushing the button. Whereas a non-celebrity client requires more work I need to direct the session, control the session, guide the client, tell them how to pose. And so it takes a lot of energy to do that on a daily basis all the time. That a celebrity clientele is actually really easy because they know what they're doing. And you really don't have to do much. You need to just pay attention to them and let them guide you. I think both are equally important. I think anytime someone hires you to capture them, it's important. That means that they trust you to capture their image, which I think is a big deal. And I think It's a privilege, and I think it's a service business. And I think that a lot of people forget it's a service business. It's not about me. It's 100% service. And it's a luxury business. Nobody needs photography. They need it, but they don't really need it. They could get it done somewhere else. So I think if you treat it like the industry it is, which it's a service industry, I'm there to service them, you realize it's less about you, and your job is to know the gear, the equipment, the lighting, and everything it takes to get that job done.
Correct.
You know.
So today I was seeing you shooting with the Mark IV, and today of generation of ours, we crib for the latest gadget, latest equipment, latest cameras, latest gears. You're using Mark IV, and you are producing such good results. So which made me understand that it's not only about the camera and lighting equipment. It is about how you know the camera and how do you operate it, correct?
100%. I am the last person to upgrade. I've always been that way. I started this journey 25 years ago with a used camera from eBay. I've never been extravagant in any of my purchases. I'm extremely conservative. I think it's because I was raised by a father who was an accountant. We didn't grow up with a lot of money. And to me, it's working. I like it. It's not broken. And I'll use it till it breaks. We're getting there, trust me. But I also think you need to know your gear. And once I'm comfortable with something and I know it, I don't want to switch, because now I have to learn something new and I'm going to be super frustrated because I get very impatient with that learning process. My patience is with the newborns. It's not in the gear. So a new camera means I have to learn it, learn the controls, and I feel like it's going to slow me down. I'll learn it like I do every new piece of equipment. I remember when I was film and I went to digital, and I was terrified because I overexposed everything. I just did not understand digital. And so for months, I shot with 2 cameras. But I did the same when I went from 35 millimeter to medium format. And then when I went from medium format to digital, each time there was like a 2 to 3 month transition where I would shoot with both cameras because I was so terrified of blowing the job. And I did many times. I remember when I was shooting 35 millimeter in medium format, and my medium format, it had a slider in the back that you should not be able to shoot if that slider is in. Okay, something happened, and I did an entire session with the slider in. And it was an afternoon of mini sessions at a park, like 6 hours of shooting. And I was so excited to get the film back, and I had a stack of film. And as I opened each one, it's empty. Yeah. And I start to tear up the first time, and then the second, and by the third, I'm bawling and crying. And that particular day, there were 2 times. That particular day, I didn't shoot with 35 millimeter because I thought I knew what I was doing. I only shot with medium format, and I lost an entire day's work. And I remember I had to call every client, apologize, reschedule, and all but one client who had extended family from out of town could not reschedule, and I had to refund them. And I lost a whole day of work, and I had to bring my camera in, and they said something was wrong with the mechanism. It should have not worked. There was another time where I did use 2 cameras, and I was shooting Asian triplets, and I did not know that there was a sync speed limit with the shutter. And so when the medium format came back, there was a black line covering the bums of the triplets. So they're sitting and they're naked and they're all cute and they're naked bums, except that the bottom was all black. But the saving grace was I shot literally 35 medium, 35 the whole time. And my clients, luckily, they didn't really pay attention because they thought that's what you do. They don't know that was not, I didn't need 2 cameras. It's not a wedding. So thank God I had the 35 millimeter to save me. So by the time I went digital, I was already traumatized by losing a day's work of medium format and that situation with the 35 millimeter, that for about 6 months, I shot film and digital because I couldn't understand why I was constantly overexposing. The digital camera was so sensitive on beach shoots and natural light shoots that I was constantly screwing it up. And I actually, this is a true story, I traded services for almost a year with a local photographer who was older than I was. And she taught me how to shoot digital. In exchange, I did her newborns. Wow. And so she had a home studio, and I would go to her studio. She would book the client would pay them, and I would be sitting in a room like this just waiting. I wouldn't say a word. And then she would say, Anna's going to be doing your newborn shoot. And I would say, okay. Now, mind you, at this point, I'm 5 years in. People know who I am. So sometimes people would look at me and they would be like, is that Ana Brandt? Like, doesn't she have a newborn studio? And I would say, yes, but I'm also working with her. I'm kind of working 2 jobs right now. And nobody knew that I was doing that because that was the only way I could understand. Like, I needed somebody to teach me digital photography. And it was mostly men, and no one was doing classes. And I met her at a networking event, and she said, I don't like doing newborns. I'll trade you. And when the client left, she would work with me one-on-one and say, this is what you need to do. And it's really interesting. About a year ago, I ran into her in a sushi restaurant with my daughters. Wow. And I said, oh my gosh, Julie Price. And she's like, Anna, she had moved out of state. And she's like, look at where you are now. And I said, you were really my only teacher. I did take a lighting intensive workshop at a Irvine Fine Arts Center, but she was the only one-to-one I ever did in my entire career was her. And because of her and my local community, I was nominated for a small business award because I joined this networking thing with my small business administration. And it was the one-to-one. Just someone taking the time going, let me explain, was invaluable to me. And it's one of the reasons why when someone comes to me for a one-to-one, I would rather do that than a group almost, because it's just me and them and I can really teach them. So I have a million stories like that. We all make mistakes, but we learn and we grow.
What I love about you is that I've seen many photographers don't like to share the secrets, the way they shoot. Yeah. The way they design, the way they keep the props. But you, on the other hand, in the 3 days of workshop, I realized that you are really on the go teaching anything I asked, everything I asked, a stupidest question that I asked. Let's say you were calm and patient to tell us. So how did you have this behavior? Like, how did you have this attitude? Because it's really very impressive, because in India, very few people have it.
My mom was like that. She was an educator and a teacher, and you could ask her anything and she would tell you. And so that's where I get it from, definitely.
And you told us in the workshop that you have not taken a break from past 25 years. Does that take a toll on your personal life, a mental balance or something? I'm sure it must affect your day-to-day activities as well, right? Because
I do take breaks. I've never taken like a real break, but I've taken time off, and I've actually had days where I've not worked, believe it or not. And I remember years ago, I brought the children to Thailand and we took a whole week off and sunbathed, and they washed the elephants, and it was an amazing week. So there are times where we've taken time off. The girls, my daughters and I, we love to take New Year's trips. That's kind of our thing. We take a couple of days off and we go. Am I always kind of working somehow? Yes, because that's being an entrepreneur. You're always, and I think when you love it, it's not really work, right? There are times where I sleep in, or I don't want to talk to anyone, or I go to bed early, or I go see a movie. But I'm also a very private person. So if I'm doing that, I'm not talking about it on social media. You know, some people, they're like, this is me taking a nap on the sofa, relaxing. To me, I don't do that because it's my personal space. So if I'm having private time, I don't want to tell anyone about it. You know, I love to lay in the sun. That's my thing. If I'm super stressed out in the summer, I'll go like take a nap in the sun. And my daughters and I used to do that when they were little. We would just go and nap in the sun. That was my favorite thing to do. And it was just kind of quiet time. I'm also an early riser. So I wake up pretty early and I have anywhere from an hour to 2 hours alone without anybody. That's good. Whether I want to meditate or make a to-do list or have prayer, or sometimes just sit and lay in bed an extra hour. I like getting up, or I like sunrise when no one's quite expecting anything of you and you have that early morning of the day to just kind of get yourself together and centered. But I like what I do and I like my job and I like coming up with new ways of teaching, and I don't need to take a break. Like I take a break when I need to, you know?
Also, I understood one thing while working with you for past 3 days, that simplicity is the key. You don't need to complicate the shoot. So could you explain about that a little bit? Because I realized that photographers like me who had started getting into this profession, we try to overcomplicate with lots of lighting, multiple light setups, multiple backdrops, multiple props. And I've seen your pictures, they are more focused on the subject as compared to vis-a-vis the props.
Yeah.
So could you explain to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. When I think about how I started, it was all natural light and a used camera. So I didn't have lights, reflector, prop, nothing. Okay. And it was film.
Correct.
And black and white. So all you had was your subject and how to manipulate light. Okay. And I did that for 10 years as an amateur. When I went pro, I remember that lighting intensive workshop I told you about was 6 weeks. And we learned everything. Rembrandt, split lighting, butterfly lighting, and off-camera flash. And we had a partner, we had to do assignments. And I remember that period in my life where I was like, okay, I need a front light, a side light. I need high key, 4 lights. I need a fill. And then I went and bought a reflector. And then I bought off-camera flash and a battery pack. And I had all this gear. And I worked that way for several years, about 5 years, where I wouldn't even go to a beach shoot without strapping a memory pack on my waist. And I remember trying to do a shoot and telling the client, wait, my light's recycling. And then I remember like yesterday being on the beach and this younger person, and I was young at the time, but even younger person ran by me and she was just taking pictures with just her camera, natural light. And I looked at her and I thought, that used to be me.
Correct.
And I'll never forget that day because I went home and I put it all away. I took the 2 off-camera flashes that I had, I put it away. My battery pack, everything, I put it in a cabinet and I never touched it again because I hated running around the beach with all this gear. And I would always have a 5-in-1 and then I had to have an assistant and it stressed me out. Waiting for the lights to recycle. Oh, I couldn't stand it. And then I'd go to work and I needed the backlight, the fill light, and I'm short, so I'd have to get up on a ladder and adjust. And then I remember going, I hate all of this. And around that time was when I switched to black clothing as well. Oh. Because there was a time where I wore jeans to work every day, blue jeans, different color shirts. If you deep in my social, you'll see. And I had different clothing and I'd always take so much time to think about what I was going to wear. And I cut my hair really short and then my hair was always in the way. And I remember going, this is too much work. I had little kids, they're like 4, 6, and 8. I don't have time to do my hair and to pick my clothing. I've got to get 3 kids off to school. And so I was like, I've got to simplify my life. And I remember like working with the kids, like, okay, at night we're all picking our clothes because in the morning we don't have time. And so my daughters used to lay their clothes, they used to call them Flat Olivia, Flat Eva, where they'd lay their clothes out. They still do it every once in a while. The shoes, the pants. So I made a rule in my house. At night, before we go to bed, the backpack is by the door, our clothes are out. So in the morning, I've got to get 3 kids out the door, including myself, because I have to go to work. Wow. So I let my hair grow long one length so that I could put it back and not worry about my hair. I've never been big on makeup, so that was easy. And then I just kind of changed my wardrobe and just kind of went to more monotone because that way I could get up and get dressed and be out of the house in about 15 minutes because I had to focus really on the children. That was my whole thing. I had to make their lunches and their backpacks and everything. And I was like, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to run a business and I'm going to do this, I have to do it in a way that I don't want to think about all those stupid things. I don't want to think about my life. I remember when Profoto interviewed me, there's still an interview on YouTube, and that was one of the things I said in the video. I don't want to think about the light, the gear, the knobs in my camera, my clothing, the jeans around my waist. I just want to do my work. And I want to just focus on the subject. So all of that extra stuff throws me off. and I like to work quickly. And so the simpler I can make things, the better work I can produce. Does that make sense?
Yes, actually, this is basically a summarize of whole the nature
The whole
that you
journey.
have in one
Yeah.
line. Actually,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because people think that this happens like this. It doesn't.
Doesn't.
I started photography before I had kids. I had no mentor, no teacher, no workshops, no social media. And Geddes wasn't teaching a workshop. I studied Ansel Adams. He wasn't teaching a workshop. It was mostly men. There were no women. So I didn't have anybody to look up to and say, how do you do this? I didn't have an Alex. I didn't have a Tiffany. I didn't have any friends because I moved from New York to California and I knew one person, the man I married. That was the only person I knew in California. I had a new name. Brandt was a married name. So I'm moving from east to west with one person, a new name, no teachers, no mentors, no friends, no family.
Correct.
I didn't even know how to pump gas. I didn't know where Orange County, LA was. I'd get on the highway and be like, I don't know where north or south is. And I was, 29 years old and had to start this new life. The only thing I knew was the job that relocated me because I was a web designer. And so I knew that with my eyes closed. And so I had to build this new life. And I would call my mom every day. I want to go home. I want to go back to New York. I have no friends, no family. I don't want to be married. Like from the day I came back from my honeymoon, I would call home. Like, I'm ready to come back. And she was like, no, you got this. You can do this. And she was the only person in my life at that time that would call me all the time and coach me. And she would be like, you can do this. And she would tell me, pumping gas, Mom, I don't understand, stupid things like, how do you make Thanksgiving dinner? How do you make, the apple pie? I would just call her for everything. My siblings would joke, oh, Anna's on the phone again, asking you again how to make apple pie again, because she's, and it was this thing where they were like, why does she call home about everything? And so I had to figure it out by myself. And so then when my kids came, I didn't have a babysitter to just drop my kids off because I was terrified of someone hurting them. That was my thing. I would watch Dateline. And they don't let me watch Dateline anymore. And so I was convinced that they were going to drown. Somebody was going to murder them. I put Evan in the pool at 3 months because in California, people were drowning. I didn't understand that. That's not a thing in New York.
Oh.
So I moved to California, and every time I put the news on, there was a child drowning. So I was terrified that I have this baby and I have a pool and he's going to drown. So at 3 months, I went in the water with him every day. Put him in swimming lessons. When he was a year, the instructor threw him in the pool and he floated. You can't do that now, but that's what they did. And I was so worried about him that if I interviewed a babysitter, I would just look at him and go, are you going to put a pillow over my son's head? Because on Dateline, this person did that.
Is this so, Anna?
Yeah. And my very first babysitter, her dad worked for Canon. We still talk to this day. And she remembers when I interviewed her, I asked her if she was going to put a pillow over my son's head and that if she was going to shake him if he cried. And so I was like, I've got to keep him alive. And so, he ended up becoming a lifeguard. And do you know he's now an EMT?
Wow.
Working on being a medic. And it's because I was so terrified of something happening to him. And then with my daughters, I was terrified they were going to get kidnapped. And so my whole thing was, gosh, now I have these children. I have to protect them. I have to keep them alive. And now I've got this business to build. And I want to work. How did my mom raise 5 children, 2 master's degrees, and then start teaching? So I would call her going, how did you do this? Like, I just am worried about them being alive in the night. And she would just always laugh. She would be like, oh, Anna Maria, this is what you do, and this is what you do. And she would explain things to me. And so she would just kind of coach me along the way. But it's a journey, it's a process. And I tell photographers, male, woman, no matter how old you are, you've got to allow yourself to go through the process. That means failures, good days, bad days. I could tell you a million mistakes. I could tell you a time where I was having dinner with the kids and there's a client at my door for an ordering appointment and I'm having dinner with the kids.
Oh.
And they're outside my studio. It's not very different now. It still happens now. And I'm like, shoot, ordering appointment, huh? And so I start crying at dinner. My client, they're like, it's okay, we're going to go to dinner. I call the restaurant and say, can I pay for my client's dinner? I screwed up. The restaurant said, no, we don't do that. Who doesn't do that? Can I drive over to the restaurant and pay for the dinner? No. I'm sobbing. All three of my kids are like, Mama, it's okay. Everybody make mistakes. You tell us that it's okay. And they're coaching me, you know? And my client was super gracious. It was an ordering appointment and we made it up. And I ended up buying her a gift certificate for the restaurant. But, you know, my kids have seen me fall down, get back up, make mistakes, grow, learn. Because I'm not flawless, I'm still learning, trying to get through like everybody else. I think the difference is I know the journey I'm on. I know why I'm here. And I'm doing the job that I feel called to do. And I think when you know that, you do it. You do it through the good days, through the bad days, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Correct. Actually true. Also, I would like to tell my viewers that I attended the workshop for 3 days. And whatever material stuff I've got to learn in this workshop, no video can teach you, no teacher can teach you except her. So thanks for that.
No. I think anybody can. I wish more people would teach and be open. It's not a secret. It's photography. I don't know why people take it so seriously. I'm not curing brain cancer, for God's sakes. I don't think I take myself that seriously. It's photography. It's whether you're learning to sew or paint. My mom used to do wallpaper. Like, I don't understand. Maya Angelou says, when you learn, you teach. And, you know, when my mom passed, she had 10 different Maya Angelou books. And I know that she had that philosophy. And I wish more people would have that, because we're not going to be here forever. And our job is to teach and lead the next generation, right? Isn't that what we do as mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers? We're supposed to be an example and lead the generation that comes after us. But the problem is egos get in the way, and we think that we are more important than we are, when really we're all here to do a specific journey. And if we can follow that, you won't ever be threatened by somebody taking your spotlight, because it's not your journey. Your journey is different than my journey. And so the only thing I can do is take the knowledge that I have and pass it on to the next person. So when I'm no longer here, they then have that knowledge to pass it on to the next person. All of my children teach and help others. My daughters have been tutoring. They all tutor. Ava taught horses. They've all babysat. You know, my son teaches and helps whenever they can. All three of my children have that same philosophy to help others. And I hope they pass that on to generations to become. And I wish more people would do that. And then they would realize that it's less about us, and then understand that it's more about what we leave behind. Isn't that the purpose?
That's actually true.
Right?
Yeah. And this is your 6th visit to India, I think.
Yeah.
Next the 5th.
6th. And I said I wasn't coming back each time.
Thanks to Falguni.
Thanks to Falguni. I'm super proud of her. You know, she came from India by herself to California. That's not something a lot of people do.
She went to California to attend
Yes,
your
she
workshop.
did.
Wow.
She came to attend the summit all by herself, left her husband and her son, and she was greeted by the people that greeted her. And she didn't just do it once, but twice and 3 times and 4 times, and I've lost count how many times she's come. She is part of my education program and my trainer program. And I always say to the people on my trainer program, the only thing you need to be on my trainer program is a willingness to teach. That's it.
Correct.
And yet, do you know how many people won't do it? It's amazing to me. And I love that she just came and did it. Did it mean she was not terrified? I'm sure she was. I'm pretty sure she said she was. Did it mean that she wasn't nervous or scared? Did it mean that she had endless amounts of money? No. But for some reason, she felt that she needed to do this. And I know it's changed her life for the better. And now she's teaching and mentoring, and she's, you know, Pro Photo Ambassador, and she, you know, is a leader in Nikon. And all she had to do was get on that plane.
Correct.
And there are so many times we're supposed to do something and we don't do it. Why? because we're afraid, right? We're afraid because we don't understand or know what's on the other side. Myself included. There's a lot of things I haven't done because of fear. But she did it. Why? I don't know. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know we'd be friends. I didn't know I would come to India and see her and meet her mother. I met her mother, beautiful woman. And I think that there's very few people in the world that I've met. And Alex, we talk about this after many workshops. It's less than 1% of the people that take the risk, that get on the plane, that leave the jobs, that do it. And that's okay, because the road less traveled is just the few chosen ones, right?
So for reference to context, Alex has also come along with Anna. He's a lighting expert, and whatever he has taught us in 3 days, we all have become a fan, and he also resembles Ranbir Kapoor. Alex, can I have you for a minute over here?
I knew that was coming.
So say hi to the camera first.
Hello.
And introduce yourself, please.
My name is Alex. I've been working with Ask for over 13 years now.
And give us your like a few time about how was working experience with Anna. That's what I want
We
to
do
know.
not have time for this. We don't. That's like a movie.
It's been a journey, an adventure. It's has its ups and downs, and I mean it's been fun. We get to travel all over the world, come to places like this.
So where is the next time you both are coming back to India now?
Next
June
is June.
I don't know.
June, July. Next
For the world tour
25.
next year.
We already have our visa.
Oh,
Because for this one we got a 1-year visa, so we can come back next year.
so that's really awesome. And thank you so much for giving me time to shoot this podcast, because I know as you have a very busy schedule and you took out time for us, for me at least.
Yes.
So thank you once again. Thank you, Alex, for teaching us such good things in lighting, because this really opened my eyes.
What do you mean good and bad? Just amazing.
Great.
There.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you.